Alright, so in the last video we went ahead and created a new component called user or user component, and it's basically just displaying this H2 here of John Doe. Alright, and I've gone ahead and I've snapped the browser on this side and the editor on this side so we can see both at the same time. Now what I want to do is I want to introduce you to properties and methods inside of a component or a class. So a property is kind of like an attribute of a component, and then a method is just a function inside of the component. And then we also have something called string interpolation, which allows us to place properties inside of our template. So basically put variables inside of our template that are read as strings. So what I'm going to do is get rid of this right here. This will be in the last lecture code if you want this, but it's just in our way now, so I'm going to just get rid of it. And then inside the class here, I'm going to define a property. So all we have to do to define it is simply give it a name. I'm going to call this one, actually we'll do first name here. So first name equals, I'm going to set it to a string of John. Alright, and then I'm going to set a last name to a string of Doe, and then I'll set an age to a number of 30. Okay, no quotes on the age because that's a number. Now in Angular it uses, or Angular 2+, we use TypeScript, which allows us to define types, but I'm not going to get into that just yet. I'm going to dedicate a section to that, so if you're wondering why I haven't added types, that's why. So these are properties. Let me just put a comment here. Okay, so properties, and then we also have methods that we can define, and one special method is a constructor. And if you know anything about object-oriented programming, you know that a constructor is basically a function or a method that runs automatically when your object is instantiated. Well, in this case it's a component, so it runs when the component is initialized. So if I were to go ahead and do a console.log here, and we'll say hello user and save. Now when our component is initialized, let's go to our Chrome tools, F12, and go to console. You'll see hello user. So this will run automatically, and this is the constructor is often used to initialize stuff. Now we also have something called a lifecycle method, which I'm not going to get into just yet, but we have one called ng-on-init, which also runs when the component is initialized, and that's where you should do things like AJAX calls or service calls, things like that. The constructor is mostly used to inject dependencies. So if we wanted to bring in a data service, we would inject it into the parameter here. Okay, in these parentheses, but don't worry about that yet. We'll get into that later on. Now, in addition to the constructor, of course, we can create our own methods inside of our component. So let's say we want to create one called, say, hello. And what I want to do is just console.log, and I'm going to put in some backticks here because I want to use a template string. Okay, basically I want to use a variable inside of this string here. So I want to say hello, and then I want to put the first name. Now to access a property from within anywhere, the constructor or a custom method we create, we need to use the this keyword. So to use a variable inside of a template string, we need to use this format. So we'll say this dot first name. So this is ES6. I know a lot of you guys probably know this, but this syntax here with the money sign, this has nothing to do with Angular. This is pure JavaScript. Okay, same thing with using the backticks. It's just a different way than using quotes. I guess I should just explain this real quick. It's the same thing as saying hello and then concatenating on a space and then concatenating on this dot first name. Okay, so that'll do the same thing. It's just the ES6, the newer way to do that. All right, so if we save this, it's not going to say hello John down here because this isn't going to run automatically. Whoops. So what we can do though is we can go in the constructor. Let's get rid of this and let's call that method. So just like when we want to access a property, if we want to access a method within the class or the component, we also need to use this. So we'll save that, reloads, and we get hello John. I'll make that a little bigger. And just to experiment with this a little more, let's create another method called hasBirthday. And let's take the age, so we can say this.age, and then let's add 1 to it. We can do that by saying plus equals 1. Okay, and this is just standard JavaScript. It's a short way of saying this.age equals this.age plus 1. So we're just adding 1 to whatever the current age is, which initially is 30. So up here in the constructor, let's go ahead and just comment out the say hello, and let's console.log the age initially. So if we do that, we're going to get 30. And then let's call hasBirthday, and then let's console.log the age again and save, and you'll see that we get 30 from this one, and then it hasBirthday adds 1, then we log the age again and it's 31. Alright, so I'm just trying to give you an idea of how properties and methods work from within an Angular component. So we can access properties from anywhere, we can manipulate them, we can change them, and so on. So in the next video, what I want to do is show you how to output some of this stuff, because we've just been working within the console. Let's add to our component output. I was initially going to do it in this video, but it's getting kind of long. So in the next video, we're going to go over data binding and string interpolation.